Today, in a small apartment in the American Midwest, the alarm clock goes off at 6 in the morning. It is Sunday. It is the Sunday before Memorial Day. The woman who turns the alarm off has been awake for some minutes already. She has been awake for some minutes for a reason that nobody else in the house knows about. She has been awake because every year on this day, for 18 years, she has not been able to sleep through. Her name is Kristen. She is approximately 40 years old. Her dark hair is pulled back. Her face has the soft fatigue of someone who has stopped fighting her own life. She gets out of bed quietly. Her husband sleeps beside her. He has been her husband for a number of years now. He met her after. In the kitchen, she fills a small glass of water and takes it to the windowsill, where she has placed a single candle. The kind of small white votive candle that you can buy in any grocery store. She lights it. She sits down at the kitchen table. She picks up the rosary that lives in the small wooden box beside her coffee cup, and she begins. She is praying for two people. She is praying for the woman she was on May 25th, 2008, and she is praying for the man who, on that day, did not call 911 when she was bleeding out into a trash can on the floor of an apartment that did not belong to either of them. She prays for him in particular. He has been sober for 15 years. He is married now. He has been married for 10 years to a woman who has never seen what Kristen saw that night, and who never needs to. The candle flickers on the windowsill. The husband, when he comes into the kitchen 40 minutes later, will not ask who she is praying for. He stopped asking some years ago. He knows that on this one Sunday a year, she gets up at 6. He knows that on this one Sunday a year, there is a candle on the windowsill. He knows that whatever happened to her on this date, 18 years ago, in another life, with another man, is the reason their daughter has a mother who comes to the soccer games. The reason their dog is alive in a warm house. The reason there is a college diploma framed in the hallway. He has learned not to ask. He has learned instead to make her coffee. To understand what is happening at the kitchen table this Sunday morning, you have to understand what was happening at 6 in the morning 18 years ago. At 6 in the morning 18 years ago, Kristen was on the floor of a one-bedroom apartment in a town we will not name, in a body that was, by every clinical measure available, dead. She had been there for some hours. The man who was with her had not called for help. He had instead dragged her out into the rain, slapped her face twice, packed her body with cold beer cans from the refrigerator, and held her. When she finally came back to consciousness, the first words she said were not what you would expect. The first words she said were,
"I'm tired and going to sleep."
This is the story of what was in between. This is the story of how a 22-year-old woman who was using methamphetamine in a small American apartment in 2008 became the 40-year-old woman who lights a candle at 6 in the morning every Sunday before Memorial Day. The story does not move forward, it moves backward. Five years ago, on the Sunday before Memorial Day in 2021, Kristen's phone rang at 8:43 in the morning. She had finished the rosary. She had had her first cup of coffee. She was 35 years old. The number on the screen was a number she had not seen in a very long time. It was a number that had once been saved in her phone as something else. The name had been deleted. The number had not. She picked up. The voice on the other end was the voice of the man who, on May 25th of 2008, had decided not to call 911. He was crying. He told her, in a few sentences, that today was 13 years for him. 13 years sober. He told her. And this is what cracked her. This is what made her have to sit down at the kitchen table she had just stood up from. He told her that he had not been able to do those 13 years without remembering the morning he had watched her body go still on the floor of an apartment, and the morning he had watched her come back. He told her he wanted her to know that. She did not say much. She thanked him. She wished him another good year. She asked, with the careful kindness of someone who is not asking for anything in return, how his wife was. His wife was well, he said. His daughter was learning to ride a bicycle. He had a job he liked. He had a routine he could keep. He had a Saturday afternoon every week when he sat on the porch and read a book, and his daughter brought him a small plastic teacup of pretend tea. He did not say what Kristen already knew. What Kristen already knew, what she had been told 17 years before, on a Sunday morning that did not happen on this earth, was that this man would not die in the 8 months that followed the overdose he had survived alongside her. She had known. In a flash of precognitive information she did not have the language for in 2008, she had known that her boyfriend, the man on the phone, would put down the needle. She had told him so the very next day. He had not believed her. It would take him 5 days to believe her. It would take him 5 days and the unmistakable change in her face every time she looked at him before he would walk out of the apartment, throw the needle in a dumpster, and ride a bus to a treatment center 2 hours away. In the call this Sunday morning in 2021, he did not say any of that. He said, "Thank you for being alive. I have to keep being alive too." He hung up. Kristen sat at the kitchen table for some time after. The candle on the windowsill kept burning. To understand the call she just received, you have to go back 2 more years. You have to understand what was framed and hanging in the hallway by then. 2 years ago, on a Friday afternoon in May of 2023, Kristen walked into a small chain-frame shop in a strip mall on the edge of her town, carrying a piece of paper she had been keeping in a drawer for several months. The piece of paper had her name on it. It had a small university seal. It had a date in May. It had the words, Bachelor of Arts, in measured serif font. She had finished college at the age of 37. She had started it at 32. She had restarted it at 34 after a semester she had to take off because of a job change. She had finished it at 37 because she was not the kind of person who needed to finish things on the schedule that someone else had set for her. She had finished it because in 2008, lying on the floor of an apartment that did not belong to her, she had been told that she would. The man at the frame shop did not know any of this. He measured the diploma. He showed her 3 frame options. She chose the one in the middle. She paid in cash. She drove home. She hung it in the hallway, between a photograph of her father from the year she was born and a small embroidered prayer that her grandmother had made for her wedding. Her husband came home from work that night and saw it on the wall and did not say anything. He brought her flowers. They ate dinner. That night, she lay in bed with her eyes open in the dark, and she remembered the exact moment in 19-year-old time, no, in 22-year-old time, in May of 2008, when she had said out loud to her boyfriend, in a kitchen in their apartment, the morning after she had come back,
"I'm going to go back to school. I don't know when, but I am."
He had laughed. She had laughed too. Neither of them had laughed because it was funny. They had laughed because she knew it was going to happen the way you know what day of the week tomorrow is. The diploma is what she sees now when she walks past the hallway to make coffee on the Sunday before Memorial Day. The diploma is one of the things she does not need to ask any more questions about. But there are still some things, even after 18 years, that take her by surprise. One of them happened the week after the overdose. To understand the woman lighting the candle on the windowsill in 2026, you have to go back to the woman who, in June of 2008, started saying things that came true. The week after the overdose, in the first week of June 2008, Kristen could not stop looking at the sky. She would be walking down a sidewalk, and she would have to stop. She would stand still and stare at a piece of cloud for what could be a minute, or what could be 5. She did not know how long. Time was doing something strange to her since she had come back. Time was something she had not yet repaired. She had not used drugs. She had not used drugs the day after. She had not used drugs the next day. She had not used drugs the day after that. She did not know it yet, but she was not going to use drugs again. The body that had been holding the need had had the need removed by something that was not therapy or willpower or a meeting. It had been removed by whatever happened to her on that floor. What was strange that first week was not the sobriety. The sobriety was, and she said this herself later, easy. What was strange was that she had started saying things. She would be in the kitchen with the boyfriend and a sentence would come out of her that she had not intended to say. She would say,
"You're going to stop too. You don't believe me, but you're going to."
She would say,
"We're not going to make it. Not like this. I know."
She would say,
"I'm not going to have children. I know that now."
Each of these sentences would land in the room like a small bird that had flown in through the window. She would say it, and she would not be able to take it back. The boyfriend would look at her, sometimes angry, sometimes scared, sometimes, and this is the look she came to recognize, sometimes the way a man looks at a woman who has come back from a place he is not allowed to go. One night, in a parking lot outside a gas station, she said to him,
"I'm going to be alive in my 30s.
He asked her what she meant. She said,
I know I'm going to make it."
She did not know why she knew. She did not know how she knew. What she knew, with the certainty of someone who has been told a fact in a place where facts do not lie, was that she had a long life ahead of her, and that she had been given it back for a reason she did not yet understand. She also knew, and this is the part that was hardest to say out loud, that she had been somewhere before. She had not just gone somewhere on the night she overdosed. She had been there before. Whatever the place was that had given her these sentences, it was not a place she was visiting for the first time. She felt instead that she was returning to it for a brief visit before being sent home again. That she had been there longer than she had been here. That the time on Earth was the visit. The other place was the home. She did not know how to explain this to anyone yet. She could not even fully explain it to herself. To understand the week of sentences in June of 2008, you have to understand the night before, the Sunday night, when none of those sentences were possible yet. The day it happened, before any of it, was an ordinary Sunday. It was the Sunday before Memorial Day in 2008. Kristen was 22 years old. She was living at the time in a small one-bedroom apartment in a building that had been built in the 1970s and had not been renovated since. The carpet was thin. The walls were thin. The kitchen smelled of cigarettes that had been smoked the night before, and the night before that, and the night before that. She had been using methamphetamine for some time. She did not know exactly how long. Time for her in 2008 was already doing something strange, but for very different reasons than it would later. We will not describe what happened next in detail. We will not describe it in detail because it is not the story. We will say, instead, what can be said without making it the story. She and her boyfriend used drugs together in their kitchen in the morning. She told him that she did not feel well. He placed a trash can in front of her. She did not need it. She slumped instead, slowly to her left. Her body went still. The boyfriend, who would tell this part of the story later because she did not remember it, first thought she was playing. Then he saw her eyes. He would describe what he saw later in words that he was not proud of having to know. They were fixed and dilated. You looked dead. Then your eyes started floating unevenly to the back of your head. He picked her up. He dragged her, and this is the word he used, to the small balcony outside the kitchen, where rain was falling. He left her there for some minutes in the rain. He slapped her face twice. He brought her back inside. He went to the refrigerator. He took out 4 cold beer cans. He pulled up her shirt and pulled down her waistband and placed the cold cans against her skin, against her stomach and against her ribs, because he had heard, somewhere, that cold could bring a person back. He sat on the floor with her in his lap. He did not call 911. He did not call 911 because he was afraid that he would be arrested. He did not call 911 because he was afraid that if he did, it would take too long. He did not call 911 because in that moment, the part of him that should have made the right decision was not available, and the part of him that was scared was the part that was steering. He held her body for an amount of time that he could not later estimate accurately. He watched her chest. It was not rising. It was not falling. He watched her face. It did not move. He waited. What he did not know, holding her body in his lap on the kitchen floor of an apartment that did not belong to either of them, on the morning of the Sunday before Memorial Day in 2008, was that the woman whose body he was holding was, at that exact moment, going somewhere. And while he was holding her body, she was being told what was going to happen next, to both of them, for the next 18 years. The first thing Kristen remembers, and she has said this exactly the same way every time she has been asked to repeat it, is that she was moving through a dark tunnel. This is the part of the account that everyone already knows. This is the part that, by 2008, every viewer of late-night cable television had heard from at least one other person. Kristen, in 2008, had not seen any of those programs. She had not read any of those books. She did not know what a near-death experience was. She was, in her own self-description from before that day, agnostic, and not even quietly agnostic. She had been raised Catholic. As a teenager, she had cursed God out loud. She had thrown her childhood crucifix into a drawer. She had spent her early 20s not thinking about any of it. What this means is that whatever happened to her on the floor of that kitchen had no cultural script attached to it. She did not know the script. The tunnel, she said, was very dark. She was afraid for a moment. She was afraid because she did not know where she was going. And then, and this is the part she has come back to over and over again in the years since, trying to find words for what is not made of words. The fear was simply removed. She has described what removed it as not exactly a light. She has said,
It was like looking at a bright light with your eyes closed.
That is the closest she has been able to come. She was no longer afraid. She was no longer in pain. The usual human pains were just gone. The hunger, the worry, the small, heavy weights at the back of every thought that she had carried for her entire life without knowing she was carrying them. They were gone. The sadness, she said, was stripped away. And then she saw him. She has not given his title. She has not put it in religious language. She has used a single word, and that word is the word she has used for 18 years.
My angel.
His name, she has said, is Michael. He did not speak. She understood him entirely. She understood the way you understand the meaning of a face when the person you love walks into a room without saying a word. She felt that he had been watching her. She felt that he had been watching her whole life. There was no time in the place where she was. She has said this very carefully because she knows it is the kind of thing that sounds like the cliché of these accounts. She has said it anyway because it is what she remembers. She has said that everything was happening at once. She has said that her thoughts moved faster than the speed at which her thoughts normally moved. She has said that her hearing was not hearing, and her vision was not vision, and that what was happening to her was more vivid than the entire 22 years she had been alive on Earth combined. She felt held. She felt, and this is the part that is hardest to put into testimony, that she had been here before. Not that she had visited, that she had been from here, that the floor of the kitchen in Indiana was the visit, and the place she was in now was the home she had been away from. She wanted to stay. She thought, in the place that was not made of thought, of her mother. She thought of her father. She thought of the boyfriend who was, at that exact moment, sitting on the kitchen floor holding her body without knowing she was anywhere. And Michael, without saying a word, without forming a sentence, without ever moving his mouth, communicated to her the only sentence she would carry back. It is not your time yet. She knew, immediately, that it was true. She knew it the way she would later know that her boyfriend would get clean. She knew it the way she would later know that she would not have children. She knew it the way she would later know that she would be alive in her 30s. She knew it because in that place, every fact was already a fact. And then, in a way she has never since been able to describe with the language available to her in this world, she floated back down to a kitchen floor, down to a body that was wearing a shirt that smelled of cigarettes and rain, down to a man who was about to get the surprise of his entire life. To understand the next 20 seconds, you have to remember what time of day it was. It was Sunday morning. It was raining outside. The boyfriend had been holding her body for an unknown number of minutes, and the woman in his arms had just been told that she had a longer life ahead of her than the one she had thought she was throwing away. When Kristen opened her eyes on the kitchen floor of an apartment in the American Midwest on the morning of the Sunday before Memorial Day in 2008, the first thing she felt was that she was wet. She was cold. She had 4 cans of beer pressed against her body, and someone was holding her. She did not, at first, know who. She tried to speak. What came out was not language. It was the sound of a mouth trying to remember the shape of words. She tried again. It was no better. The man holding her, and this is in his own account, said her name out loud. She heard him. She knew he was there. She tried, in her head, to put together a single phrase. The phrase that came was not the one she was hoping for. The phrase that came was a phrase that had nothing to do with where she had just been. She said, in a voice that came out almost clearly,
I'm tired and going to sleep.
And she began, slowly, to crawl across the floor toward the small bedroom of the apartment. The boyfriend, watching her crawl, asked her, because he did not know what else to ask, "Do you want a cigarette?" She turned to look at him. Her face, in his memory, did something complicated, she said, in a tone of mild surprise, as if a piece of information had just been corrected for her in real time.
I forgot I smoke cigarettes.
She climbed into the bed. She pulled the blanket up. She slept. She did not yet know that, on the kitchen floor of an apartment that did not belong to her, on the Sunday morning before Memorial Day in 2008, the following had just been decided. She would not use drugs again. She would not, within a week, smoke another full pack of cigarettes. She would, within a month, begin to say things that came true. She would, within a year, be sober. She would, within 5 years, be sober and almost done with her undergraduate degree. She would, within 15 years, light a candle for the man holding her on this kitchen floor. The man who, by then, would be holding his own daughter somewhere else in another house. She would, every year on this date for the rest of her life, light a candle on a windowsill. She did not know any of this. She was tired. She slept. Today, in 2026, the candle on Kristen's windowsill is on its way to burning out. The husband is sitting across from her at the kitchen table with a fresh cup of coffee. The dog has come into the kitchen and lain down at her feet. The phone is on the table, screen down. She does not know whether the call from 2021 will come again this year, in some form, from the man who once held her on a floor. She does not need to know. What she knows, what she has known since 2008, is that the place she went to that morning was not a hallucination, was not a withdrawal symptom, was not the random firing of a dying brain. It was a place. It was a place she had been before. It was a place she will return to one day, when the call comes for it to be her time, in a way that this morning in 2026 is not yet. She has never stopped believing this. If you have been carrying a question about whether the people who love you and who have died still know you, if you have been carrying a question about whether your own life is worth as much as the place you came from, or as much as the place you are going to, if you have been carrying a question that you cannot ask out loud because there is nobody in your life right now who would receive it well, then this episode is for you. Kristen would tell you what she told her boyfriend on the morning of June 1st, 2008, in a kitchen that smelled of rain. She would tell you that the place we go is not somewhere else. It is somewhere you have already been. It is where you came from. This is NDE Cosmic Legacy. If this story stayed with you, if a name surfaced as you watched, a face, a date, a Sunday morning of your own, leave a single word in the comments below. The lantern is lit. It is the Sunday before Memorial Day somewhere in the world tonight. Pass the light to whoever you know is on the floor. And remember,
We don't really die. We just wake up.